Hello everyone and welcome to The No Show. I'll be your host Nathan Orenstein and today I'm going to be reviewing Obsession. Obsession is written and directed by Curry Barker and stars Michael Johnston, Inde Navarrette, Cooper Tomlinson, and Megan Lawless. After years of pining over his crush, Bear buys a one-wish willow that will supposedly grant him any wish, and he wishes that Nikki will love him more than anyone in the entire world. His wish comes true, but ultimately comes with some horrifying consequences. Curry Barker is not someone I was really familiar with at all until a month or two ago, but he represents two of the seemingly fastest growing demographics for making horror films: YouTubers and sketch comedians. Barker, along with Cooper Tomlinson, who stars in Obsession, has about 1 million subscribers on his That's a Bad Idea sketch comedy YouTube channel, but he's also cut his teeth on horror short films as well. And in 2024, he even uploaded his debut feature film, Milk and Cereal, to YouTube on only an $800 budget. Milk and Cereal is honestly the only thing I've ever seen of Barker's, and I frankly wasn't crazy about it, but I thought it at least showcased him as a legitimate horror director and not just a YouTuber making a long video and calling it a movie. Well, enter Obsession, his big screen debut. Not only does this prove that Curry Barker knows how to make a horror film, but I personally think it already cements him as one of the most impressive horror directors working today. I think part of the genius of Obsession is how simple and familiar its story is, while going above and beyond in pretty much every regard with the execution. This is a classic monkey's paw story in which someone gets a wish, and that wish comes back to bite them in the ass. It really is as simple as that. And the cast is also basically just 4 characters: Bear and Nikki, who make up the main couple, and their 2 friends, Ian and Sarah. Again, it really is as simple as that. By keeping the foundation so simplistic, Barker has essentially created a sandbox to work in, unhindered by complex plot lines or the need to build out several characters. We know who these people are pretty much immediately, we understand their relationships with one another, and we know where the movie's going to go once Bear gets his wish. From there, the movie's free to do whatever the hell it wants, and boy oh boy does it use that freedom liberally. Point blank, this is one of the most uncomfortable films I've seen in quite some time, and I think it creates that unease in a variety of ways. The main one, of course, being its depiction of obsession, and how Nikki's behavior gets more and more insane following Bear's wish that she loved him. But there's also the underlying implication of what it means for someone to love you against their will, and the way that it manifests itself throughout the film is honestly pretty gross. And even the scenes that aren't necessarily scary, just the social anxiety of watching Bear's incredibly awkward character, or watching him bring Nikki to public places where she's acting incredibly obsessed with him, it just makes for some scenes that can be difficult to sit through. This clearly isn't a one-trick pony. There was at least one moment where I got full-body chills, there were multiple points where I felt trapped in the scene because it just kept on going, and even in the moments where I could kind of tell where the scene was going, the execution was still effective enough that it didn't matter that I saw it coming. I watch a lot of horror movies, and this is one of the few times that I felt physically bad leaving the theater and like I wanted to crawl out of my skin. And I mean that as the best compliment possible for a movie like this. Funny enough though, there are also plenty of comedic moments here too. Certainly not enough to call this a horror comedy, but enough that it left a lasting impression. There's a part during the climax specifically that had me laughing harder than anything's made me laugh all year, and yet it didn't kill the tension for me. Pretty incredible that it could find that balance and throughout the entire film too. Getting back to the horror though, there are a lot of things happening here that make this such a successful horror film. For one, the way that it looks is just constantly off-putting. The 1.5 to 1 aspect ratio means it looks skinnier and taller than a normal film, which creates this bizarre feeling of both isolation and claustrophobia. The film pairs this with its great lighting and shadow work while holding on to specific images to give you a sense of unease of not fully knowing what is and isn't in the shot at all times. And by holding on to these images, it forces you to sit with that feeling. The score and sound work in general are also fantastic, largely consisting of eerie ambient electronic music, but effectively pushing in or pulling away in intensity in the exact right moments. Combine that with the film's masterful edit, somehow also done by Curry Barker, and you really get a sense of how perfectly each scare was crafted. Everything feels entirely intentional, and there's a real attention to detail with each scene that I can only really compare to something like Get Out in recent memory. Like I said before, Barker really set himself up to be able to work in a sort of horror sandbox, perfectly crafting everything exactly how he wants to, and that control is on full display with every scene. The final piece that pulls everything together, though, is a truly incredible performance from Inde Navarrette as Nikki. She absolutely commands the screen as this obsessed girlfriend, but she does so in a way that ranges from pretty normal to batshit insane. I think where the greatness of her performance lies is not only in her ability to capture that range, but to do so in a way that can change on a dime in any individual scene or any individual shot. Her character is a ticking time bomb that fully operates in reaction to whatever Bear does, and that dynamic between the two creates some brutally tense moments. This is also one of those movies that slowly gets more and more intense as it goes along, and by the time it reaches its fever-pitch climax, it feels completely earned. I think the biggest reason for this is Navarrette's performance perfectly turning up the dial just a bit with each passing scene. Much like Barker's full control of the scares, it feels like she's in full control of this character and how Nikki should be behaving at any given moment given the circumstances. I hope that Nikki becomes an iconic horror character and that Inde Navarrette continues to bless us with fantastic horror performances. This is going to sound crazy, but I fully believe it. Obsession is the best horror movie of the 2020s. And yes, I am fully aware that that includes Sinners, and The Substance, and Nope, and I Saw the TV Glow, and Nosferatu, and even this year's The Bone Temple. But I don't think any of those movies are as effective and as masterfully made as this one. I do have some tiny nitpicky things here and there that I didn't feel were important enough to mention, but by and large, this is an incredible film. I'm going to be giving it a 9 out of 10. If you enjoyed the review, then feel free to like and subscribe if you're new. And if you've seen Obsession already, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Thanks for watching.